Human soldier picked the weakest alien princess as his reward. The reason will amaze you. The sky above the shattered planet of Lysara burned with streaks of crimson and gold. Smoke rose from broken towers, and the once glorious gardens lay trampled beneath the weight of war. Commander Kale, a human soldier of unmatched skill, stood atop the ridge overlooking the battlefield, his armored boots crunching against blackened stones. His gaze swept over the ruins, calculating and cold. Every victory came at a cost, but this conquest, would be remembered across galaxies. The alien kingdom had fought fiercely. Lysara was home to a proud people whose magic shimmered like starlight and whose warriors moved with grace that defied human training. Yet Kale's strategy had been perfect. He had anticipated every maneuver, exploited every weakness, and now the battlefield lay silent, save for the cries of the wounded and the whispering wind. "Commander Kale," called a soldier beside him, bowing low. "The royal family awaits your decision. They offer you the reward promised to the victor." Kale turned, his piercing gray eyes reflecting the fires of the city below. He had expected this moment, the culmination of the war and the spoils that would follow. But there was something different here, something in the air that made his chest tighten. The reward was simple on the surface. The monarchs of Lysara, acknowledging their defeat, presented 3 daughters, princesses, each radiating power and beauty beyond measure. One possessed elemental control over fire and flame, her hair a living blaze. Another commanded the minds of beasts, her gaze sending shivers down the spines of all who met it. The third, Elira, seemed fragile. Elira's skin was pale, almost translucent under the alien sun, and her eyes held a quiet depth that seemed to look through Kale, not at him. She carried herself with a careful, hesitant grace, her voice soft when she spoke and her movements cautious. By all appearances, she was the weakest of the 3, untested in war or magic. Kale's soldiers snickered behind him. "Are you blind, Commander? The others wield power that could make empires bow. That one whispered, nodding at Elira, "is nothing." Kale did not answer. He had learned long ago not to rely on appearances. He had seen strength where others saw fragility, courage where fear seemed to dominate, and cunning where simplicity hid. His eyes remained on Elira, and something in that quiet gaze stirred a curiosity he could not name. The royal envoy bowed low. "Choose, human. Take the daughter you desire as your reward. Their fates now rest in your hands." Kale stepped forward, each movement deliberate. He studied the princesses, each a symbol of conquest and power. Fire danced in one's hair, beasts crouched at another's feet, magic crackled in the air around them. Yet his eyes lingered on Elira, whose only visible power seemed to be her careful composure. He reached her first. The court gasped. Whispers echoed through the broken halls. How could the human commander, famed for his ruthlessness, choose her? Kale spoke, his voice steady, measured. "She will do." A stunned silence fell. The royal family looked as if they had been struck by lightning. The other 2 princesses' eyes widened with shock, as did his own soldiers. They expected him to select the mighty, the dangerous, the unstoppable force, and yet he had chosen the one who seemed weakest. Elira's gaze met his. For the first time, she did not tremble. There was a flicker of understanding in her eyes, almost as if she had been waiting for him. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The silence between them carried weight, as if a secret had passed unspoken. "Why her?" whispered one of Kale's lieutenants. Kale did not answer. Some truths were not for explanation, not yet. Instead, he extended a hand to Elira, who took it with a surprising steadiness. Despite her apparent fragility, there was a strength beneath the surface, subtle and controlled, like a candle burning quietly in the wind. The journey back to the human encampment was quiet. Elira remained calm, observing the soldiers, the landscapes, and Kale himself with careful eyes. She spoke rarely, but when she did, her words carried insight beyond her years. Kale found himself listening more closely than he expected, noting the way she noticed patterns, small movements, and details others overlooked. That night, as Kale rested in the commander's tent, Elira sat across from him, the firelight casting shadows across her pale face. "You do not treat me like a reward," she said softly, her voice almost melodic. "Others would see me as a trophy, but you study me." Kale leaned back, arms crossed. "I do not need trophies. They are heavy and they do not teach me anything." Strength is often hidden, and the smallest ember can start a fire that consumes empires. Elira tilted her head, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "And do you think I am such an ember?" Kale's gaze met hers. I do not know yet, but I intend to find out. Her lips curved into a faint smile, the first he had seen. It was fleeting, like the whisper of a secret on the wind, but it unsettled him in a way he had not felt before. In the silence that followed, Kale sensed a connection forming, not one of possession or conquest, but something quieter, sharper, and infinitely more dangerous. Days passed. The soldiers settled into a tense routine, and Elira adapted with careful precision. She spoke to the wounded with kindness, offering comfort where her presence alone seemed to soothe. She walked among Kale's men without fear, and they began to notice that she noticed more than anyone else. A blade hidden in the rubble, a guard distracted, a minor crack in the defenses that could become disastrous. Kale watched her. Each day, the puzzle of her grew more intricate. The weakest princess, he realized, was no ordinary girl. Her fragility was deliberate, a mask perhaps, or a strategy he could not yet discern. Yet beneath it, a current of quiet strength ran like a river under ice, waiting to break free. One evening, as the twin moons of Lysara rose over the smoldering city, Kale and Elira walked along the cliffs overlooking the battlefield. The wind tugged at their cloaks, and the ruins below seemed almost alive, whispering secrets of a kingdom defeated but not yet forgotten. "You could have chosen either of my sisters," Elira said, her voice barely carrying over the wind. "Why me?" Kale did not answer immediately. He studied the horizon, the blackened towers, and the fragile gardens clinging stubbornly to life. Finally, he spoke. "Because you are the one who surprises me. The others are obvious. Their power is loud, and the world already knows it. But you are not yet revealed. And I have learned in all my years of war that it is often the unseen force that shapes the fate of empires." Elira regarded him quietly. There was no boast in her gaze, only a faint acknowledgement that he understood something others could not. "You will have to teach me then," she said softly, "for I do not yet know who I am or what I can truly do." Kale's lips curved into a faint smile, almost imperceptible. "Perhaps we will learn together." That night, Kale could not sleep. He sat alone on the ridge, staring at the glowing moons above the ruined city. Thoughts of Elira filled his mind. There was a depth in her that went beyond magic, beyond titles, beyond conquest. It was a depth that stirred something in him, a curiosity, an unease, a longing he had long buried beneath the armor of a soldier. Unseen, a shadow moved among the ruins below. A figure cloaked in black watched Kale and Elira with keen eyes. Its whisper carried on the wind, soft but clear. "The one you chose is not as weak as she seems, but her strength is a seed of both salvation and ruin, and the path you walk now will test more than your skill in war." Kale felt a shiver, not of fear, but of anticipation. He did not yet know the meaning of those words, but he understood their weight. Elira was no ordinary reward. She was a mystery, a challenge, and perhaps a reckoning he had not expected. As the first light of dawn painted the city in shades of blood and gold, Kale returned to the camp. Elira was already awake, standing silently among the soldiers. Her gaze met his, steady and unwavering. And in that look, Kale saw the promise of something far greater than conquest, a bond that would change both of them, and perhaps the fate of the galaxy itself. The battlefield lay quiet, but Kale knew it would not remain so. Forces beyond his understanding were stirring, drawn by the choice he had made. And as he watched Elira, the seemingly weakest princess, he realized that the war was only beginning, not with enemies outside, but with the truths waiting to awaken within her and within himself. And so, the human soldier who had chosen the weakest princess of all prepared for the journey that would defy expectation, break the limits of power, and test the boundaries of the heart. The days that followed Kale's choice passed with uneasy calm. The ruins of Lysara still smoldered under the alien sun, yet life had begun to creep back into the city. Soldiers rebuilt shattered walls, tended to the wounded, and patrolled the streets with wary eyes. Among them, Elira moved with quiet purpose, her pale presence both calming and unsettling. Kale watched her carefully. She spoke little but observed much. Where other princesses might flaunt their power, she seemed content to remain unseen. Yet Kale could sense that beneath her gentle demeanor, something simmered, hidden and precise. One afternoon, as the twin moons began their slow ascent, Elira approached Kale while he examined reports of lingering rebel forces. "Commander," she said softly, "there is something you should know." Kale looked up from the parchment, noting the careful calm in her posture. "Go on." Elira hesitated, as if weighing each word. I am not as powerless as I appear. There are forces in this city, in this world, that respond to me. I have been bound by a curse, one that hides my strength from others and from myself. Kale's brow furrowed. Many tried to hide their power, whether out of fear or pride, but Elira's tone carried no arrogance. Only honesty. A curse, he asked. Then what keeps you from using it? She lowered her eyes. If I attempt to control it too soon, it could harm the very people I wish to protect. I have been trained to remain small, quiet, unnoticed until the time is right. Kale studied her. He had faced monsters and warriors who could level cities, yet something about Elira unsettled him more than any blade or spell. There was potential in her, raw and unpredictable. Then perhaps the time has come, he said finally, a note of curiosity threading through his voice. Elira shook her head. Not yet, I must understand it first. If I fail, I could destroy more than our enemies. I could destroy myself and you. Kale's eyes softened slightly. He had chosen her, not for power, not for glory, but because he sensed that her strength was more than visible skill. And now, he realized, it was a delicate force that required patience, wisdom, and trust. He felt the first stirrings of something unfamiliar, care, concern, perhaps even a protective instinct he had never known before. That evening, Kale took Elira along the northern walls of the city, where the ruins of old spires stretched like broken teeth against the twilight. The wind carried the scent of ash and wildflowers that had stubbornly survived the war. "Show me," he said. "Show me what you can do." Elira's gaze flitted to the distant horizon. "I am not ready," she murmured, "but I can show you a fragment, a small part of what I am." With a gentle movement of her hands, a soft glow emanated from the ground around them. Flowers, blackened and dead from the war, began to bloom in brilliant colors, crimson, violet, gold. They swayed as if alive, reaching toward her as though awakening from a long slumber. Kale stepped back, surprised. The transformation was subtle yet breathtaking, a power of life rather than destruction. The soldiers watching from the walls whispered among themselves, unsure if they should be afraid or amazed. "You see," Elira said quietly, "my power is not only strength in battle, it is the pulse of this world. I can heal, awaken, and sense things that others cannot. But it comes at a cost. I cannot fully control it yet." Kale nodded, impressed. "Then we will take it slow. We will learn together." For the next few days, Kale and Elira trained in quiet. Not with weapons or traditional combat, but with observation, focus, and subtle influence over the world around them. Elira revealed fragments of her ability, sensing danger before it came, mending minor wounds of soldiers, and manipulating light to hide from prying eyes. Each display was small, almost imperceptible, yet Kale could see the potential for something extraordinary. At night, their conversations deepened. "Why did you choose me?" Elira asked one evening as they stood beneath the glow of the moons. The air was cool, filled with the scent of ash and the hum of distant engines repairing the city. Kale looked at her, his gray eyes thoughtful. "Because you are more than you appear. You see the world differently. You notice what others miss. You survive in ways others cannot. You challenge me in ways I didn't know I needed." Elira studied him silently. She did not speak, yet her eyes, calm, knowing, spoke volumes. There was something about Kale that drew her in, a hidden softness beneath his hardened exterior, a mind trained to survive yet capable of unexpected care. Days turned into nights, and the tension between them grew, not the tension of enemies, but of two forces circling each other, cautious yet drawn together. They fought side by side as remaining rebel factions attempted to strike, and each time, Elira's subtle powers saved lives. Soldiers who once doubted her now looked at her with awe and cautious reverence. Yet the peace was fragile. Rumors reached Kale that rival alien kingdoms had sensed the stirrings of Elira's power. Their spies whispered of a princess with a hidden gift, a force that could shift the balance of the galaxy. One evening, as Kale patrolled the northern cliffs alone, Elira approached him, her expression serious. "There is danger," she said. "Not just from enemies of your kind, but from those who would use my power for themselves. If they find me unguarded, the consequences will be catastrophic." Kale placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "Then we will guard you, together." Her eyes held a mixture of gratitude and worry. "You do not understand, it is not just about protection. My awakening draws attention even from forces that sleep beyond this world. I cannot hide it forever." Kale's jaw tightened. "Then we face them when the time comes. I've never backed down from a fight, and I will not start with you." Elira's gaze softened, and for the first time, Kale thought he saw a trace of hope. She had spent her life constrained, bound by a curse, yet here she was, standing quietly, fragile in appearance but strong in will. That night, as the camp settled into uneasy quiet, Kale dreamed. In the darkness of his mind, he saw visions of Elira, not as the timid princess before him, but as a radiant force, bending light and shadow, controlling the life around her with effortless grace. And yet in those visions, danger loomed, a shadowed figure, faceless and immense, moving through the city with intent unknown. Kale woke before dawn, the dream lingering like smoke. He found Elira standing outside his tent, gazing at the stars. "You are awake early," he said, stepping into the cold morning air. "I cannot sleep," she admitted. "I feel a stirring, something calls to me, something beyond this city." Kale followed her gaze. The ruins of Lysara stretched into darkness, the twin moons reflecting off broken towers. "Then we must be ready," he said. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Days later, a sudden psychic pulse rippled through the city. The ground trembled and soldiers stumbled, clutching their heads as if the wind itself spoke in a language they could not understand. Elira clutched Kale's arm, her eyes wide, pupils dilating as her inner power flared, responding to the disturbance. "Kale," she whispered. "It is happening, my power, it's awakening beyond my control." Kale held her steady. "Breathe, control it, I'm here." But control was fleeting. Elira's energy surged, small objects around her levitating, shimmering lights dancing across her hands. Soldiers gasped and stepped back. Kale realized that her weakness had always been a restraint, the curse suppressing her potential. And now, as it broke even in fragment, the scale of her ability became terrifyingly apparent. Yet even in the surge, there was beauty. Flowers grew where her energy brushed the ground, wounds of the injured healed as if kissed by sunlight, and the air shimmered with a soft luminescence. Kale could see clearly now why he had chosen her, not for what she seemed, but for what she truly was. Elira collapsed into his arms, exhausted by the sudden release. I cannot fully control it," she murmured. "What if I harm someone?" Kale shook his head, keeping her steady. "Then we learn that is what we will do together. No one else can teach you this, only you and I." As the city watched, whispers of awe and fear filled the air. Soldiers began to understand that the princess they had underestimated was no ordinary figure. And Kale knew in the quiet of that moment that his life, and the fate of the galaxy, was now intertwined with hers in ways he had not imagined. From the shadows beyond the city, watchers stirred. Unknown eyes observed the awakening, plotting and waiting. Elira's rise had not gone unnoticed. Forces both near and far would soon challenge them, and Kale realized that the choice he had made, to take the weakest princess, was only the first step into a far larger and more dangerous path. As Elira rested against him, her pale face illuminated by the twin moons, Kale's heart beat with determination. He had chosen her for reasons even he did not yet fully understand. And now, as her power stirred and the city held its breath, he knew that the war, both within the world and within themselves, was only beginning. The quiet of the night held a tension that spoke of battles yet to come, secrets yet to be revealed, and a bond between soldier and princess that would define the future of both their lives. And in that moment, Kale understood. Elira's fragility had been a mask, and beneath it lay a force capable of reshaping destinies. The air over Lysara had grown heavy with tension. Elira's awakening power, once a quiet pulse beneath her frail exterior, now drew attention like a beacon. From the shadows of distant lands, unseen eyes watched, waiting for the moment to strike. Kale knew that their calm days were ending. They moved quickly through the remnants of the city, Kale leading the way with his trained instincts, Elira following close, her hands glowing faintly as she stabilized her unstable magic. Soldiers had begun to whisper, not only in awe but in fear of the princess whose gentle touch now held the force to heal or harm on a scale they barely understood. "Kale," Elira whispered as they climbed a steep ridge beyond the city walls. Her voice trembled, though she tried to steady it. "They are coming, forces that do not belong to this world. They feel my energy. They will not wait." Kale's hand tightened on the hilt of his blade. "Then we leave no time to waste. We move now and we move fast. Nothing will catch us off guard." Their journey took them through jagged cliffs and forests scorched by the recent war. Elira's power pulsed unpredictably, reacting to every rustle in the trees and every distant shadow. Kale had never seen magic behave like this, alive, unpredictable, almost sentient. Yet he felt no fear. He felt responsibility. He was not only her protector, but the one who would help her master this dangerous force. At night, they camped in the ruins of an old watchtower, crumbling stones leaning precariously against the wind. Kale kept watch as Elira sat beside the fire, her pale hands glowing faintly as she practiced small bursts of controlled energy. "Why me?" she asked suddenly, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames. "I am still weak. I cannot fight as you do. I cannot command armies. I only bring danger to those around me." Kale studied her face, his jaw set with quiet determination. "You are not weak. You never were. Strength is not measured by the size of your blade or the number of soldiers at your command. Strength is measured by what you endure, how you choose to act, and the courage to face what others fear. You have all of that." Elira looked away, the wind tossing her silver hair across her face. "I fear my power. What if I cannot control it? What if I hurt someone I care about?" Kale's gaze softened. "Then you trust me. I am here. Together we will learn. And if the world tries to take you from me, I will fight for you, as long as I live." Her eyes met his, a faint glimmer of hope breaking through the worry that always shadowed her face. She had spent her life constrained by the curse, never knowing if her own power would destroy her. Now, in the quiet of the ruined tower, she felt for the first time that she was not alone. The next morning, danger arrived. A group of armored figures appeared at the edge of the forest, moving with precision and purpose. They were unlike any soldier Kale had faced, tall, lithe beings whose eyes glowed faintly, their weapons humming with strange energy. They had come for Elira. Kale stepped in front of her, sword drawn. "Stay behind me," he commanded. The soldiers, once confident in his leadership, now understood the threat was unlike anything they had encountered before. Elira's hands glowed faintly. The forest around them seemed to respond, vines twisting and roots shifting to block the approaching enemies. Small stones lifted from the ground, hovering as if poised to strike. Her control was imperfect, but the force she exerted was undeniable. The first of the intruders leapt forward, a humanoid figure moving with blinding speed. Kale's blade met theirs in a clash of sparks, and the sound echoed through the trees. But it was not just skill with the sword that mattered now. Elira's power flared, a wave of light and energy that sent several of the attackers staggering backward, their weapons thrown off balance. "You are stronger than you think," Kale said, shouting over the chaos. "Focus, do not let them overwhelm you." Elira's breath came in short bursts. Her energy surged unpredictably, sometimes healing Kale's minor wounds, sometimes striking the enemies with force that left scorched marks on the earth. Each time she used her power, Kale felt a pulse of both awe and worry. She was magnificent, terrifying, and utterly fragile at the same time. During a brief lull, Kale grabbed her hands, grounding her. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "Control your fear, control your focus. Your strength is yours to command. They cannot take it from you if you do not let them." Her eyes met his. I am trying," she whispered. "You are doing more than trying," he replied. "You are surviving, that is enough for now." As the intruders regrouped, Kale and Elira fled deeper into the cliffs, finding a hidden cavern marked by ancient glyphs that glowed faintly in the dim light. Inside, Elira's power seemed to respond to the cavern itself, the walls reflecting her energy, amplifying it in subtle ways. "This place," Elira said, her voice barely audible. "It resonates with me. I think it is safe here, at least for a while." Kale nodded. "Then we stay. We regroup, and we prepare. They will not stop, and neither will we." In the quiet of the cavern, Kale observed Elira as she rested. The weight of her power pressed on her, even in moments of stillness. He realized that her fragility was not weakness, it was survival. Every careful movement, every measured word, every hesitation was a shield she had learned to wear against a world that never understood her. Night fell, and Kale sat beside her as she slept, keeping watch. The shadows danced across the walls, flickering with the glow of her latent magic. He thought of the battlefield where he had first chosen her, of the whispers from his soldiers, and the shock on the faces of the royal family. None of them had understood. None of them had seen what he saw now. A force quiet, restrained, and immensely powerful, capable of shaping the future if only it could be guided. Suddenly, a distant sound echoed through the cavern, a soft hum, almost melodic, yet carrying a note of danger. Elira stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "They are coming," she murmured. "Not just the soldiers we saw, something else, something older, stronger." Kale's hand went to his sword. "Then we prepare together." Over the next several days, they worked to master her abilities. Kale trained her in focus and restraint, teaching her to direct her energy with intention. Elira, in turn, revealed glimpses of a deeper connection to the world, sensing threats before they arrived, and subtly manipulating the life around her to protect them. Their bond deepened, no longer just of necessity but of trust and unspoken understanding. One evening, as they rested in the cavern's quiet, Kale noticed something in her eyes, a flicker of loneliness, of fear, and of longing. He reached out, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "You do not have to carry this alone," he said softly. "Not now, not ever." Elira's eyes met his, and for the first time she allowed herself a small, genuine smile. I think I am beginning to understand. With you I do not feel so afraid." Kale's chest tightened. He had fought countless battles, faced countless enemies, yet this fragile connection, this quiet trust, was unlike anything he had ever known. It was not power or victory that mattered now. It was protection, understanding, and the bond forming between them in the shadow of war and magic. But the respite was short-lived. A sudden tremor shook the cavern, sending dust and small rocks falling from the ceiling. Elira's power flared involuntarily, casting shimmering lights across the walls. Kale pulled her back to safety as the sound of heavy footsteps echoed above. "They have found us," Elira whispered, her voice tight with fear. Kale's jaw set. "Then we fight. But remember, control is everything. Your strength is ours, Elira, but only if you command it." The intruders broke into the cavern, a group unlike any they had faced before. Their bodies shimmered with alien energy, and their eyes glowed with intent. Kale met their advance with steel, while Elira, guided by instinct and his steady presence, unleashed controlled bursts of magic that turned the tide of the skirmish. Though the battle was fierce, neither emerged unscathed. Elira, exhausted and trembling, collapsed into Kale's arms. The intruders retreated, recognizing the force they could not yet overcome. Kale held her close, his heart pounding. "You see now," he said softly, "your power is real, and together we can face anything." Elira nodded weakly. I understand, but the world will not wait. They will come again." Kale's grip tightened. "Then we will be ready together." As the stars twinkled above the cliffs of Lysara, Kale and Elira sat side by side, bound by necessity, trust, and a growing understanding that their fates were intertwined. The journey ahead would test them, challenge them, and perhaps change the course of their world. But for the first time, they were not alone, and that made all the difference. The journey to the ancient temples beneath Lysara's ruins was treacherous. Jagged cliffs jutted into the sky, their peaks shrouded in mist, and the forests that had once flourished were now twisted by magic, both wild and unpredictable. Kale and Elira moved carefully, each step deliberate, their senses alert to the unseen dangers that lurked in the shadows. Elira's power had grown with frightening speed. She could heal, protect, and even manipulate life in ways that felt natural to her, yet exhausting. Kale noticed how she moved differently now, lighter on her feet, but with a tension in her shoulders that spoke of constant vigilance. Her hands glowed faintly in moments of stress, a reflection of the bond she shared with the life around them. "This path," Kale said as they approached a narrow gorge, "is not only physical, it will test your control. The temples were designed to reveal weaknesses as much as strengths." Elira nodded, her silver hair catching the pale light. "I am ready, I think. But I still do not understand the full extent of my power. I feel it in pulses, sometimes strong, sometimes fragile, and always unpredictable." Kale placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Then we will face it together. Trust yourself, trust me." As they descended into the gorge, the air grew thick with magic. The walls glimmered with ancient glyphs, faintly alive, as if the temple itself breathed. Strange whispers seemed to echo from every stone, carrying the weight of centuries. Elira's hands rose instinctively, guiding energy to steady herself. Kale watched closely, noticing the faint tremor in her fingers. "This place is alive," Elira murmured, her voice almost lost in the hum of power around them. "I feel connected, but I also feel danger." "Then we proceed with caution," Kale replied. "Your life and the lives of others depend on your focus. Do not let the temple trick you." Hours passed as they navigated the labyrinthine halls. Each corridor seemed to shift under Elira's presence, reacting to her latent power. Symbols glowed brighter, then dimmed, like the heartbeat of the ancient structure. Kale realized that the temples were more than a sanctuary. They were a test, designed to push those who entered to confront not just their strength, but their character. Finally, they arrived at a vast chamber. Columns of crystal rose to the ceiling, refracting the dim light into thousands of shimmering beams. At the center, a pedestal held an orb, faintly pulsating with energy that mirrored Elira's own. "This is it," she whispered, stepping forward. "The ritual, if I succeed, I can fully stabilize my power. If I fail—" Her voice trailed off, eyes wide with fear. Kale reached for her hand. "You will not fail. I will not let you." The ritual began with careful steps. Elira channeled her energy into the orb, her glow spreading throughout the chamber. The air hummed, and the walls seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. Kale remained close, guiding her focus, speaking words of encouragement, and shielding her from the sudden surges of energy that threatened to overwhelm her. But the ritual did not go unnoticed. From the shadows, figures emerged, other factions who coveted Elira's power. They had been following, waiting for this precise moment. Their intent was clear: take her power for themselves, no matter the cost. Kale stepped in front of Elira, sword drawn, eyes scanning the chamber. "They will not touch you," he said firmly. "Not while I live." The attackers advanced, and the chamber erupted into chaos. Elira's power flared in response, waves of energy pushing them back. Sparks of light danced across the walls, and the crystals shivered under the strain. Kale fought with precision, blocking and deflecting attacks, while Elira's energy acted as both shield and weapon. "You must remain focused," Kale shouted over the clash of metal and the surge of magic. "Do not let fear control you." Elira's hands glowed brighter, her energy flowing with a rhythm that matched the pulse of the temple. She felt it, the life of the world responding to her, amplifying her strength, guiding her hands. With Kale's presence anchoring her, she was able to strike back, using precise bursts of power that forced the intruders to retreat. But the cost was evident. Her body trembled, exhaustion etched into every movement. Kale caught her as she faltered, holding her steady. "You did it," he said, his voice low and fierce. "You survived, you controlled it." Elira sank into his arms, her breath shallow. I felt so much. The temple, the energy, it wanted to take me over. I could barely hold on." Kale brushed a strand of hair from her face. "And yet you did. That is your strength, not the power itself, but your will to command it, to survive it." For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then a faint voice echoed from the shadows, unfamiliar and chilling. "She is powerful but incomplete. Her heart is untested. Her mind vulnerable." Kale's eyes narrowed. "Show yourself." From the darkness, a figure stepped forward. Clad in dark robes and radiating a subtle, dangerous aura, the stranger's eyes gleamed with intent. "I have watched her rise. You have trained her well, soldier." "But do you truly understand the cost of power?" Kale's grip on his sword tightened. "We understand more than you think. Elira is not yours to claim." The stranger smiled faintly, a chilling expression. "She belongs to no one yet, but power always attracts its price. She will learn that soon enough." Elira's eyes widened, and a surge of protective energy flowed through her. Kale stepped closer, shielding her from the stranger's presence. "She is not alone," he said firmly, "and if you try to harm her, you will face me first." The stranger's smile did not falter, but with a sudden motion, shadows twisted around them. Kale's sword clashed with an unseen force, sparks flying as the dark energy met his steel. Elira, guided by instinct, raised her hands, sending a pulse of light that illuminated the chamber and pushed back the shadows. The battle was fierce but brief. The stranger retreated, leaving behind a warning. "Your bond will be tested, and only one of you will emerge unbroken." Kale lowered his sword, breathing heavily. He looked at Elira, whose glow had faded, leaving her pale and trembling. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Elira shook her head weakly. "Physically, no, but I feel changed. The power, it is mine, but I can feel the consequences." "Every action has a weight. Every surge leaves a mark." Kale nodded, understanding immediately. "Power always comes with a cost, and now you have learned its first lesson." They spent the night in the chamber, recovering and reflecting on what had occurred. Elira's hands rested in Kale's, her gaze distant yet thoughtful. "I see now," she said softly, "why you chose me. You saw not only my potential, but the burden that comes with it. You knew that I could survive it." Kale's eyes softened. "I did, and I was right. You are stronger than anyone could imagine, not because of your magic alone, but because of your will, your courage, and the trust we share." For the first time, Elira smiled fully, not the cautious smile of before, but one of quiet pride and understanding. Then we will face whatever comes next together, Kale nodded. Together! But the calm did not last. The stranger's words lingered, a haunting echo that warned of trials yet to come. Elira's power, while stabilized for the moment, was still a beacon. Others would come, those who sought to control, to dominate, or to destroy what she represented. Kale knew that their journey was far from over. As dawn broke over the temples, Kale and Elira prepared to leave. Each step back toward the surface was cautious, alert to the unseen dangers that awaited them. Yet in the quiet moments between, they shared more than strategy. They shared trust, laughter, and the first traces of something deeper. A bond forged in necessity, strengthened by shared danger and nurtured by understanding. Kale watched Elira as she moved, noting the way her hands glowed faintly even in moments of rest, how her eyes caught every detail of the temple, how her presence seemed to calm and energize the world around her. He realized then that she was no longer the fragile princess he had chosen, but a force in her own right, tempered by caution, sharpened by experience, and guided by the bond they shared. And yet, as they descended into the forests below, Kale felt the weight of the stranger's warning settle heavily in his chest. The bond between them would be tested, of that he had no doubt. The world beyond the temples was waiting, full of unseen enemies, moral dilemmas, and choices that could either save or doom them both. Elira walked beside him, her hand occasionally brushing against his. "Do you ever wonder," she asked softly, "if we are ready for what comes next?" Kale's gaze remained fixed ahead, scanning the mist-shrouded path. "We will be," he said firmly. "We have survived worse than this already, and as long as we are together, we will face whatever comes." Always together. The forest seemed to close around them, shadows shifting, whispers in the wind carrying both warning and promise. The first true test of their bond had been survived, but Kale knew that it was only the beginning. Beyond these trees, beyond the mountains, lay challenges that would question their trust, their morality, and the very nature of Elira's power. Yet for the first time, he did not feel fear. He felt determination and a strange, quiet hope. The princess who had seemed weakest in the world was now the strongest force he had ever known, not because of her magic alone, but because she had chosen to face it, with him at her side. And together they stepped into the unknown, ready for whatever trials awaited, their bond unbroken, their hearts aligned, and their destiny, though uncertain, shining brighter than any star in the sky. The stars above Lysara shimmered in patterns older than memory. From the ruined cities to the jagged cliffs, every corner of the planet hummed with anticipation, as if the world itself held its breath. Kale and Elira stood at the edge of the celestial plateau, overlooking the swirling vortex of energy that had appeared in the sky, a rip in reality itself, a doorway to something vast, dark, and incomprehensible. "This is it," Kale said, his voice low but steady. "The threat the visions spoke of, the one that could consume not just our world, but the galaxy beyond. Are you ready?" Elira's silver eyes reflected the cosmic storm above. Her hands glowed faintly, though her body trembled from the strain of recent battles and the stabilization of her powers. I am ready," she whispered. "But I will need you, Kale, not just as a protector, but as my anchor." "If I lose control," her voice faltered and she looked away. Kale stepped closer, resting a firm hand on her shoulder. "Then you will not lose control. I will hold you steady as I always have. We face this together." The energy in the sky swirled faster, dark clouds coalescing into a form both terrifying and mesmerizing. A cosmic entity, vast and formless, descended, its presence warping the light around it. The air trembled as though reality itself feared the being. Kale drew his sword, its edge catching the faint glow of Elira's energy. "Stay close," he said, keeping his focus sharp. "Do not let it frighten you." Elira's hands flared with brilliance. She could feel the entity probing her mind, testing her strength, threatening to overwhelm her. But Kale's presence grounded her, reminding her of the trust, the bond, and the countless trials they had endured together. She was no longer the timid, weak princess she had once been. She was a force tempered by experience, guided by conscience, and anchored by love. The entity's voice echoed in their minds, deep and resonant like the vibration of a dying star. "You cannot resist me. Your power is insignificant, your world is mine." Kale tightened his grip on his sword. "We are not insignificant, and this world is not yours to claim." Elira stepped forward, her glow intensifying, her hands weaving threads of energy that twisted around the vortex. She called upon the life of the planet itself, reaching deep into the forests, the rivers, the mountains, and the ruins. Every living thing responded, lending strength to her command. The air shimmered with the pulse of life, radiating outward to meet the darkness. The entity struck, sending waves of dark energy crashing against them. Kale raised his sword, cutting through the destructive force, while Elira countered with pulses of light that pushed the darkness back. They moved in perfect harmony, him grounded and precise, her flowing and unpredictable. Together they formed a shield of steel and energy, hope and determination against the vast cosmic threat. Hours seemed to stretch like days. The sky twisted and roared, stars bending under the pressure of the entity's power. Kale fought tirelessly, striking with precision, guarding Elira from attacks he could not see, while she poured every ounce of her strength into controlling the life around them. "You are doing it," Kale shouted over the roar of energy. "You are stronger than it knows." Elira's hands glowed brighter, every pulse of her power a defiance against the darkness, yet her body shook from exhaustion. I cannot hold it much longer." Kale's eyes met hers, unwavering. "Then we will do it together. Trust me, trust yourself, trust what we have built." Drawing upon every lesson, every moment of guidance, Elira synchronized with Kale's focus. Their bond, forged in battle, trust, and quiet understanding, became a conduit for immense power. Together, they created a force unlike anything either had encountered. Waves of light, life, and energy intertwined with Kale's unwavering determination, forming a shield that blazed with the intensity of their unity. The entity screamed, a soundless cry that shook the very foundations of Lysara. Its dark form twisted and writhed, trying to overwhelm them. But Elira, strengthened by Kale's presence, held firm. She reached deeper, touching the core of the planet itself, pulling strength not only from the Earth but from the connection they shared. The trust, the love, the bond of survival and reliance. With a final surge, Elira released a pulse so bright it rivaled the light of the twin moons. The entity recoiled, its shape destabilizing as it was pushed back through the vortex. The sky shimmered, cracks of light closing as the cosmic force was banished, retreating into the void from which it came. Silence fell, profound and heavy, broken only by the hum of Elira's still glowing hands. Kale sank to one knee, breathing heavily. He reached for Elira, steadying her as she swayed, exhausted yet radiant. "You did it," he whispered. "You truly did it." Elira's hands trembled, but a faint smile formed on her lips. "We did it together," she said softly, leaning into him. The world seemed to exhale around them. The forest shimmered with renewed life, rivers gleamed in the starlight, and the ruins of Lysara, though scarred, pulsed with vitality once more. Elira's power, once hidden and feared, had become a force of creation, not destruction. Kale looked at her, his eyes filled with awe. "You have changed everything," he said, "not just the world, but me." Elira's gaze softened, her hand brushing against his cheek. "And you have changed me. You taught me to trust, to believe in myself and in us." They remained in the plateau's quiet, holding each other as the twin moons rose, bathing the world in silver light. The journey that had begun with a choice, a human soldier selecting the weakest princess, had transformed into something greater than either could have imagined. They had survived war, betrayal, and cosmic threats. They had faced the weight of power and learned its cost. And through it all, they had found each other, a bond stronger than any magic or steel. Yet as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Kale sensed the lingering presence of the universe's mysteries. Forces unseen still moved beyond the stars, watching, waiting. Their battle had ended, but the galaxy remained vast, full of unknown challenges. Kale turned to Elira, his voice calm but determined. "The world is safe for now, but this is only the beginning. The universe is vast and there will be more to face. Will you face it with me?" Elira looked into his eyes, seeing not only his strength but his unwavering faith in her. "Always," she whispered. "As long as we are together, I am ready." Kale extended his hand, and she took it. In that moment, the scars of war, the burden of power, and the weight of the galaxy seemed lighter. They were not just soldier and princess, not just protector and protected. They were partners, equals, and companions in the journey of life. Together, they descended from the plateau, leaving behind the battlefield, the temple, and the trials they had endured. The forest of Lysara thrived under Elira's gentle influence, and the city's survivors watched as the human soldier and the once weak princess walked side by side, a living testament to courage, trust, and the power of choice. The story of Kale and Elira would be remembered for generations, not for the battles they fought alone, but for the bond that turned weakness into strength, fear into courage, and the unknown into possibility. As the stars twinkled above, Kale glanced at Elira, a faint smile touching his lips. If we've survived this, I wonder what else awaits us beyond the stars. Elira's silver eyes sparkled with quiet determination. Whatever comes, we will face it, together. And so the human soldier and the princess who had seemed weakest became a legend, not because of conquest, but because of the trust, love, and strength that grew between them. The galaxy had been changed, and they had changed as well, transformed by trials, darkness, and the light that had always existed within them both. The stars above shimmered with promise, the wind whispered of new adventures, and the bond between Kale and Elira stood unbroken, a testament to the power of choice, the strength of connection, and the redemption found not in victory alone, but in understanding, trust, and love.